Chapter 13. In the precious, quiet moments just before dawn, it was natural to feel close to God. Rising from the bank of the river, I left for the morning lecture. Srila Prabhupada began, as if picking up from my own waking thoughts. Everything is potentially spiritual. Everything is the energy of the Lord. Material consciousness is to forget an object's relationship with God. Spiritual consciousness is to see everything in relation to God and utilize everything in devotional service. Prabhupada tapped the microphone to make his point. Let us take this microphone, for example. If it is used to sing songs about mundane passion, it is material. If, however, it is used to sing the glories of the Lord, it is spiritual. It's all a matter of consciousness. We want to use everything for a spiritual cause. Bhakti Yoga is the art of transforming material energy into spiritual energy through a spirit of devotion. Like an earthquake, his words shook my world. I thought, this concept is revolutionary. It challenges the very core of my idea of detachment. I had assumed detachment meant to give up everything and live with nothing but the barest minimum to survive. When I honestly searched deep into my heart, I had to admit that in a subtle way, I was proud of the way I had been living in India and even thought it superior to the way people lived in the West. But perhaps this idea of detachment is just another product of self-deceiving ego, inducing me to feel superior to others. My reality was shaken. It was easy to think of the beautiful natural surroundings in Vrindavan and the temples to the deities as spiritual. But a microphone? I thought of how I had judged Prabhupada's Western followers for carrying cameras and tape recorders. I reflected how foolish it was of me to look down on them, feeling that I was better because of my ascetic lifestyle. I now understand that detachment is only sacred to the degree it fosters humility, respect, and love. In a few words, Srila Prabhupada had just crushed my illusion. My ego felt battered, and yet I was thankful. It is said that a saintly personality can be softer than a rose or harder than a thunderbolt. This morning, one guest made excuse after excuse to defend his immoralities and spiritual weaknesses. Srila Prabhupada listened, and then his voice rose like thunder. If you are weak, rectify it. If you have no determination, you have no character. What makes you different from an animal? The man shrunk like a punctured balloon. Bowing down, he promised to do what he knew was right. When required, Srila Prabhupada could be very strict to emphasize the urgency of a person's predicament. Like a scalpel in the hands of an expert surgeon, his strong words cut only to heal. Or as he explained himself, a spiritual teacher is required to have the courage of a British general and the heart of a Bengali mother. Srila Prabhupada went on to say, addressing us all in a pleading tone, when a drop of water falls from the clouds, it is transparent, but in contact with dirt, it loses its transparency. Through filtration, we can bring it back to its original quality. Similarly, our consciousness is originally pure. but in contact with material energy, it has lost its transparency. By chanting the names of the Lord, we can revive our natural, blissful state. He explained how we must rise above sectarianism and understand that God had many names and had invested divine powers within all of them. He said, "The name Krishna means all attractive. He is all attractive because he is the reservoir of all beauty, knowledge, strength, wealth, fame, and renunciation. Possessing a particle of these qualities makes a person great. God is great. He is the origin of all these opulences and possesses them without limit. That is what is meant by the Supreme Personality of Godhead." He went on to explain that it was a natural process. The more we hear about Krishna, the more the soul's dormant attraction to him is awakened. The path of bhakti is centered around hearing about Krishna and chanting his holy names. As our love awakens, so does our enthusiasm to serve. Often I had heard the words, "God is great," but this explanation of how he was great thrilled me. Chills ran through my body. That evening, I sat on the hill crowned by the ancient Madan Mohan temple. Overlooking the river Yamuna, I read a prayer written by Srila Prabhupada when he was stranded on that cargo ship in the middle of the ocean on his voyage to America. 70 years old, he had endured consecutive heart attacks on the trip. He had only $7 in Indian currency, and he did not know a single soul outside of India. After 30 days at sea, he approached the Boston harbor, where he composed a personal prayer to Lord Krishna. Years later, his followers happened to find it in an old trunk. In the solitude of that mountaintop, the leaves of the trees rustled in the wind, and in the distance I heard the lowing of cows and boatmen calling out to each other. I meditated in the stillness of my mind on a few verses from what are now called the Jaladuta prayers, which read as follows. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here, otherwise, why would you bring me to this place? Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure, as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel engladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. O Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. O Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, one who possesses devotion and knowledge. And now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board the ship Jaladuta, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, 18th of September, 1965. From the hilltop, I gazed down toward the Yamuna as she wound across the plains. As I meditated on Srila Prabhupada's prayer, my thoughts drifted to the parallels between my arduous journey from America to India in search of teachers to receive knowledge about God, and Srila Prabhupada's incredible voyage from India to America in search of students to impart knowledge about God. Perhaps God, I thought, reveals true love to the world through the lives of those who love Him. In Prabhupada's prayer, I found humility springing from the heart of a man who had forsaken everything for the spiritual welfare of others. An aged man who was seriously ill, penniless, and alone in a foreign land, begging God for only one blessing, to be used as an instrument of God's mercy. Early the next morning, awakened by distant temple bells, I lay on the riverbank for a long time, gazing at the morning star, and remembered the prayers I'd read the night before. Today was Srila Prabhupada's 8th and final day in Vrindavan. As was my custom, I bathed in the frigid waters and then stood in prayer, submerged to my shoulders. The soft moonlight shone on the silhouettes of the distant temple spires. Silence covered the ether like a feathery blanket. Solitude was my only companion at this hour. Trembling in the cold, I pressed my palms and fingers together and prayed to Sri Radha and Krishna for guidance. Then I climbed onto the riverbank, squeezed the water from my clothes, and put them back on, all the while quaking from the cold. I sat down to chant the holy names of the Lord on wooden prayer beads, preoccupied with Srila Prabhupada's departure from Vrindavan later that day. An hour later, I was striding through the dim lanes of Vrindavan, eager to attend Prabhupada's last talk. Along the way, interspersed with the quiet of dawn, temple bells and gongs rang, the faithful sang, and shopkeepers were opening for business. Arriving, I took my seat on the floor. The hall was brimming over with disciples and guests softly chanting the Mahamantra, while a clay drum and hand cymbals kept a rhythm. In the chill of the winter morning, some were bundled with wool shawls, hats, or sweaters. A sweet fragrance rose from burning sticks of sandalwood incense, while a bitter-sweet feeling rose from the assembly. No one wanted to see Srila Prabhupada leave Vrindavan. As Srila Prabhupada entered, the kirtan rose in volume and tempo, only to fade into a silent hush as he took his seat upon the dais. The rays of the rising winter sun came through the window and bathed his form in light. Outside, the parrots sang their elaborate songs. To this avian symphony, Srila Prabhupada added the chimes of brass finger cymbals. Then, closing his eyes, he sang a beautiful devotional prayer. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivaradhari. As he sang of the love between the Lord and his loving devotees, I listened to the voice of my heart. It said, Srila Prabhupada's love for God is conquering me. Srila Prabhupada's singing flowed through my ears and streamed down into my chest. I felt that all the events of my life thus far had been conspiring to bring me to this point. From the very core of my heart welled a spirit of acceptance that yes, God had revealed my Guru. I felt my soul rising and swirling in an enormous wave of faith that was plunging me into an ocean of gratitude. In this unfamiliar state, joy flooded my heart. I thought back to my first meeting with Srila Prabhupada in Bombay. At that time, a voice in my heart had proclaimed, "This is your Guru." But I was neither convinced by nor ready to accept what that voice commanded. So while my mind had done battle with my heart, I dismissed it and carried on with my search, a search that eventually brought me to Vrindavan and to Krishna. Now my heart and mind were harmonized by a power infinitely greater than either one. Yes, I could hear my heart rejoicing. My quest, which had begun half a planet away in Highland Park, Illinois, had finally delivered me to the feet of my Guru. In that moment, I realized that there could be no greater goal in my life than helping Srila Prabhupada to spread God's love to the world. How I longed to even be the smallest instrument in that compassionate mission. Gradually, other thoughts arose. I recalled the Egyptian mystic in the Himalayas who had prophesied, "You must persevere with patience, for by a power beyond your own you will recognize the very one you seek. Believe in this. It is your destiny. Your master will come to you." His prediction had come to pass. My Lord had revealed a seed of faith in my master, and I seemed to be swimming in a sea of euphoria. But within the span of a few earthly moments, I had to honestly face my own reality. I thought, can I really remain faithful to my Guru's teachings? There are endless temptations in this world. To disgrace him would be an act of unthinkable ingratitude. And though I am coming to respect them, his Western disciples are so different from me. Can I live among them? I have great faith in Srila Prabhupada, but little in myself. Am I honestly qualified to be his disciple? Tears welled in my eyes, my limbs tingled, and my heart pulsated with a warm feeling as I concluded that I was not qualified, but was determined to prepare myself with the passing of time. As the morning sun warmed the world from a chilly winter morning, I drifted along in a sizable crowd that was gathering outside to bid Srila Prabhupada and his followers farewell. Moments later, the flow of the crowd pushed me in such a way that I found myself standing right before him, gazing into his deep brown eyes, and he into mine. A mystical feeling overwhelmed me. It was as if the Lord himself were gazing into my soul through Srila Prabhupada's eyes. Everything else seemed to disappear. He stood calmly, waiting for me to speak. With a choked voice and my emotions swirling in gratitude, I shyly said, "Srila Prabhupada, I wish to offer you my life." Countless time passed in the silent moment that followed. Then he graciously touched my joined hands with his fingertips and gently smiled. His eyes, moistened with affection, were like those of a father welcoming home his wayward son after untold years of separation. In his gaze, I encountered an endless sea of wisdom that stretched beyond time. I felt a love, deep yet personal, giving me a comfort I had never known. With a slight nod, he said, "Yes, you are home." A surge of gratitude pushed tears through my eyes, and struggling to restrain my bursting emotions, I bowed. Srila Prabhupada tilted his head, handed his cane to my friend Shyam Sundar, and stepped into his car, smiling and bowing his head to his friends and admirers. With many cheers, waves, and tears, we watched as the entourage drove off into the horizon. I stood motionless, gazing into the clear morning sky. Today, I felt that the sun of faith had risen from the shadows of my mind. It was a sun that I believed would never set. An outpouring of gratitude sprung from my heart. For this blessing, I had endured dangers and hardships. For this treasure, my whole journey had been taken. For this precious moment, my soul had ached and yearned. God had revealed my path. The fog of doubt and apprehension had cleared, and now I found myself before a fully enlightened spiritual master to whom I could dedicate my life. That for which I had offered thousands of prayers and shed countless tears to attain was now revealed. And how sweetly it was done. My joy knew no bounds. In this person, Srila Prabhupada embodied the teachings I discovered at the heart of every tradition I'd scrutinized. I experienced the timeless love and the wisdom of galaxies of saints flooding from his lips and drowning my every doubt as he spoke. He delivered a message that had been preserved through the ages by an unbroken line of masters who teach us how to realize our intimate relation with the all-attractive Beloved. In my heart had awakened a faith that this humble saint, so small of frame, was actually fully in love with Krishna, and that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, was fully in love with him. During my travels, it had not been my practice to compare my teachers as if one were better than another. I simply absorbed, like a sponge, their teachings and the experiences I had with them, with faith that God would reveal my path and guru. In Bombay, Srila Prabhupada first planted the seed of our relationship in my heart. Like a spiritual conception, it remained hidden, gestating, while I found my way to Krishna's birthplace in Vrindavan and made it my home. Now, 9 months from the time of that spiritual conception, it had taken birth in this holy land. Looking back into the events of my life, I began to recognize how the invisible hand of my Lord had carried me along. I could see every stage of my life as being a beautiful blessing. I looked back at the times of joy and sorrow, pride and shame, successes and failures, and how they all led me forward on my path. I recalled those who had showered me with affection, like Kailash Baba, and those who despised me or plotted to destroy me, like the assailants in Istanbul. They were all part of a beautiful plan. As the water of a river finally finds its place in the sea, my life's calling finally brought me to the feet of my Krishna and my beloved Guru. With tears of gratitude, I could feel my Lord proclaiming, "I am here. It is I who have brought you here, and this is he to whom you belong." Lost in thought, I walked back to the small room in the ancient temple where Prabhupada had resided for 6 years as a recluse. Sitting on the floor in the tiny space where Prabhupada would cook, I gazed out the window and couldn't believe what I was seeing. Only a few meters away from Srila Prabhupada's hermitage was the samadhi or tomb of Rupa Goswami, the very place where I had a life-changing revelation and where my spiritual path was finally revealed. I returned to my place on the riverbank and savored the experience of that unforgettable day. The night grew late. Under the quiet of the moonlight, I reflected on my fascination with rivers throughout my journey. Each one drew me to her banks, where she nourished me with wisdom and provided me a sanctuary. Searching into the waves of the Yamuna with my mind's eye, I could also see that creek in Gettysburg, the stream in Luxembourg, the canals in Amsterdam, the Thames in London, the Tiber in Rome, and the beautiful Ganges. Each had whispered to me at critical junctures and times of need. Now, gazing into her gentle current, I meditated on how the Yamuna River began her journey in the Himalayas, where she flowed through forest dwellings of yogis and sages, and eventually, by a power beyond her own, Yamuna was irresistibly drawn to Vrindavan. In a similar way, I thought, arriving in India, I began my journey in the Himalayas, where the river of my destiny carried me through forest dwellings of yogis and sages, and eventually, by a power beyond my own, I was irresistibly drawn to Vrindavan, the land of bhakti, and to the feet of my Guru. In the moonlight, I looked down into the river and saw the silhouette of my own reflection. All along, the Lord had been trying to show me, through the river of life, who I really was. As I lay down on the earthen riverbank, I remembered how I had prayed to my Lord in my bedroom in Highland Park, and I smiled. Yes, all along, you have been listening.